Good evening. You're watching a special edition of India Decides and I'm Barkha Dutt. On the program this evening, over the next 60 minutes, we'll be asking whether coal has started a forest fire that will bring the UPA government down. The UP, of course, is brazening it out despite an embarrassing affidavit placed before the Supreme Court today by the CBI. An affidavit that actually confirms that the coal report, the report that was being prepared on that coal allocation scam, was altered with. Further, the CBI has confirmed to the Supreme Court that the Law Minister and, crucially, this is important, officials from the Prime Minister's office made changes, and these changes, according to the CBI, were significant. The CBI has listed 3 changes that it considers to be significant and has also listed 1 addition that was made to the content of that coal report. The CBI has gone on to, however, argue that the essence of the report, the essence of the investigative process has not been compromised despite the meetings that it confirmed were held with the Law Minister as well as law officers of the government as well as Prime Minister's office officials and officials in the coal ministry. At the end of this affidavit, which has many embarrassing details from the government, when the CBI makes the argument that the essence of its investigative process has remained unhindered, unharmed, is the affidavit going to cause an inevitable cornering of the UPA government, or is it actually going to provide them an exit route? The Supreme Court will have the last word, of course, in 2 days from now. But before we introduce our panel this evening, let's go across to my colleague Sunetra Chaudhary. She's been reporting on this story over the last many days. And Sunetra, I have highlighted some of the key changes that are referred to in this affidavit. But what I think could be most damaging is the focus on the Law Minister as well as officials of the Prime Minister's office. Inevitably, questions are going to arise, especially related to the role of joint secretaries, whether in the PMO or the coal ministry, that a joint secretary doesn't necessarily act on his or her own. The Prime Minister's office is arguing that the changes made were factual. But the question is that this is a report that nobody should have seen, leave alone make changes to it.
Well, what's interesting is before the CBI listed those significant changes, as it calls them, by the 2 joint secretaries, it also gives a little rider in the beginning saying, I just want to put on record, Ranjit Sinha says in the affidavit, that there is a usual this kind of consultation between the 2. But as they then point out the changes, is that something which is out of ordinary or not? That's what the Supreme Court has to decide. The change, specifically the significant change which they made, the allocation and weightage of points in allocating those mines to people. So whether all the people that were there, all the bidders that were there, how much weightage to give there, that is absent. CBI had noted in its report. But for some reason, it's unclear right now, the 2 joint secretaries deleted them. And what the CBI also then admits to is that we accepted that deletion. Now, is that okay? That's one thing we have to see. The other 2 deletions, of course, both the Law Minister. One, about the fact that there was no screening committee, something that has been attacked. Barkha, you know that screening committee, CBI says, that did not have any kind of charts or broadsheets or Excel sheets. For some reason, Law Minister deleted this. And the second one, which is perhaps more interesting, about the question of the scope of investigations, inquiry and respect to legality of allocation while the amendments in law were in process, this bit, which was there in the Supreme Court status report prepared by CBI, this bit also deleted. About the law officers, of course, compared to these significant changes, CBI does make a little contrast to that, says the suggestions by the Attorney General were minor in contrast. Barkha?
All right, Sunetra, the fact is that 3 changes were made, 1 addition was made in a report that actually was not for the eyes of the political executive. And that's what important. Yet, the Law Minister met the Prime Minister today and he's continuing to say he's done nothing wrong. He believes, he has been telling journalists all day off the record, or rather off camera, he's been telling journalists all day he believes that the court will bear him out on Wednesday when the court next hears this matter. Let's introduce our panel now. Has coal caused a fire, a forest fire literally, that can bring, if not the UPA, at least the Law Minister down? What about the role of the Prime Minister's office? Remember, it was the Prime Minister who held the coal portfolio from 2006 to 2009. Who is accountable? Who stands to explain or how much the Cole report was meddled with at the end of this affidavit. With me in the studio, we have Raju Ramachandran. Raju Ramachandran has, of course, been a former Additional Solicitor General. He's also a senior advocate with the Supreme Court. Likewise, with Mukul Rohtgi, senior advocate and former Additional Solicitor General. We're also joined by Prashant Bhushan, a senior advocate, a member of the Aam Aadmi Party, and also somebody who actually was a key player in this because he actually took a public interest petition to the Supreme Court asking for greater transparency in what went wrong in this case and who interfered and at what level. We're also joined by Harish Salve, former Solicitor General of India. Also joining us in the program tonight, Amarinder Saran. He's also been a former Additional Solicitor General. And finally, last but not the least, R.K. Raghavan, former Director of the CBI. I'd like to start with Harish Salve and Prashant Bhushan, if I may. Harish, to you first. As somebody who has been a law officer, who's been very blunt in your criticism of the process which was shaken, though that's the phrase that the Supreme Court used in its last set of observations. When you look at the CBI affidavit today, is there something that strikes you as contradictory? Because I was trying to make sense of it, and I saw that on the one hand, the CBI lists these very serious 3 changes and 1 addition. On the other hand, it is continuing to arguing that no substantive changes have been made.
Barkha, let's read the CBI affidavit, and because it's my conclusion that the CBI has completely lost its credibility and has to be removed from this investigation. Let me tell you why. First of all, it is now established that there were significant changes made. It was not an exercise in grammar or semantics that was going on in the Law Minister's office. Second thing, it is established that contrary to the rumors that the Law Minister was trying to spread, the meeting was called by the Law Minister. So let us not now discuss the abstract proposition on whether CBI can consult the Attorney General or the Solicitor Generals, because that's not what happened. The Law Minister called them. The meeting didn't originate from the CBI, the meeting originated from the Law Minister. And the entire matter has to be seen in that backdrop. So let's not get into abstracts of is there anything wrong in the CBI meeting, the attorney or the solicitors or whatever. Now in this backdrop, Barkha, 2 or 3 things are very important. There are preliminary inquiries, PE.
Yeah.
A PE is a precursor to an FIR. It is the first step in the initiation of criminal investigation. Did they go to Mayawati ji to ask her when they recorded a PE? Did they go to Mulayam Singh ji or his lawyers when they recorded a PE? And how is the position of the Law Minister any different? Because this PE relates to the Union of India, and worse, joint secretaries in the Ministry of Coal and joint secretaries in the PMO being consulted in relation to a PE in which their conduct is in the scanner. I mean, this is shocking. And despite this, the CBI says significant changes are made, but you know, we have not made any very major changes. I think they should have just hung their head in shame and said, sorry, we've been exposed, and we hope we will never do this again. I mean, this is unacceptable. Thirdly, why is there no explanation up to now that who gave the Law Minister the authority first to call his own meeting and then to tell the CBI now go meet the Attorney General, he will have a second look? What is this going on in this country?
Prashant Bhushan, with regard to the role of the joint secretaries, this is a question you raised in the Supreme Court today, that the government needs to answer, that when a joint secretary in the Prime Minister's office begins to look at what should be a classified report, somebody has mandated that officer to do that. So to that extent, there seems to be a lot of opacity around the role of these 2 joint secretaries.
It's obvious that the joint secretaries were not acting on their own.
Exactly.
Obviously, they were acting on instructions. Somebody must have sent them to look at the report and see some things from some point of view. And if you look at this whole thing as to why the government was so keen at different levels to see this report and to make changes in this report, you find that at least at 3 stages meetings were held, these reports were seen and changes were made. First in the Law Minister's office, then in the Attorney General's office, and then in the CBI office where these 2 joint secretaries come. Now, who are the beneficiaries of this interference? I mean, who is being investigated? Primarily, it was the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister's role that was being investigated, because the Prime Minister was the coal minister at the relevant time and all the allocations are made at his instance. Secondly, it was the Prime Minister who stalled the changes in the Mines Act to provide for auctions, which the Coal Secretary was pleading for since 2004. This was delayed by more than 6 years while all these allocations were made. And all these, if you see as to who are the officials who tried to interfere, all these people are under the control of the Prime Minister. Individually, they did not play any role in the allocations, neither the Law Minister nor these Joint Secretaries, except the Attorney General, who did play some role because he gave opinions relating to these coal allocations. Other than that, all these persons were really beholden to and controlled by the Prime Minister.
But Prashant,
And
can I
therefore-
ask you something? What is this, when you look at the affidavit today, you made the point that it is in the end the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office that wielded that authority to make the allocations. When you look at the affidavit today, do you believe the CBI has come out walking a thin line, trying to say changes were made, but no, they weren't really made? Or do you believe that the CBI has in its own way tried to take on the government? Because Harish is making the argument that the CBI stands discredited after this affidavit.
No, you see, the CBI director clearly, though a pliable person from all this, it is clear that he is pliable, but he is also timid. He doesn't want to risk the chances of perjury and contempt of court. Therefore, he decided that he would not say anything false. The only question was how much should he reveal or how much should he not reveal. And that is why so many consultations were held between him and the Attorney General, between him and the Mr. Narayan Swamy and others, in order to decide what should go into this affidavit, what should not go into this affidavit.
Okay.
So,
Which
what
is
the
again highly
CBI
objectionable.
director has done is, without making a directly false statement, there are, as in his first affidavit, also in this affidavit, I believe, full facts have still not been revealed, and in my view they would be revealed only if the computers of the CBI officers on whose computers these drafts were made and changed, etc., are examined, because that will reveal exactly what changes were made at what time,
Okay.
and therefore that would reveal at
Okay.
whose instance these changes were made.